Hello everyone. So today we are going to we'll start with scoping rule and then we will move ahead and go to the custom labels and custom settings. Okay. So what is scoping rule? On my last session, we talked about the restriction rules, which basically restricts couple of records so that user will not be able to see them. Okay, scoping rule is also pretty much similar, that it will also scope the record so that your users will not be able to see them, so that they can actually focus on the records which need their attention. So here we can create different scopes, and based on that scope we will hide irrelevant data to your user. Let's say you have a sales team, okay, and sales team works on different division, and you have shared some data with them, and they are able to see the data of, let's say, 2 3 divisions. But for now you want a particular user to focus on your own division without changing anything in the sharing setting. So what you will do is that you will create a scoping rule by which you can scope that data based on division, and then they will only be able to see the data what we have filtered for them. Okay, so they also pretty much work in the same way, is that they will filter out the data for the users. Now what are the differences between restriction rules and scoping rule, we will cover later in this session. But first let us try to create a scoping rule and see how it works. Okay, so and the one major difference you can say is that it is available for a standard object as well, while there is no restriction rule available for this object. Okay, so now if I go and create a new scoping rule, I will also pretty much make it similar to what I did with the restriction rule. Okay, so I will name it as test scoping rule. I'll mark it active. What I want is, if users department is engineering, then user should only be able to see the record whose users should only be able to see those accounts whose, let's say, rating do we have any rating field? Yeah, account rating is, let's say, hot. Okay, okay, so what I have created is that if user's department is engineering, then he should only be able to see the accounts whose rating is hot. That is the scoping rule we are going to create. Okay, now if I save this and this is active, let us go to account. Now I as an admin should be able to see everything, so this obviously will not apply to me, but let us check the user. So we will check it with our second user, which is dummy user 2. We will check if the department is engineering or not. So department is engineering and this is dummy user. Let me first mark it, this rule mark as inactive, so that I'll be able to show you later the effects of it. Okay, so let's make it inactive. what I see nowadays is that many people are not aware about these scoping rules and restriction rules. So it will be good for us to know these things. Okay. Now let me open it the incognito. The other one as well. Right. Now let me log in with the user 2. You guys are able to see my screen?
No, Mohit.
Yeah, I see the lights. This is the light problem. Just a second, huh? I'll reshare it. I hope it is visible now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so I have logged in on my screen. So screen which is on right is dummy user 2. Screen on left is the admin screen. Let me go to accounts and see which accounts currently this dummy user is able to see. Okay, so currently this dummy user is able to see many accounts. Okay, like the rating, irrespective of rating, warm, hot, cold, he is able to see all the accounts, right? Now, if I go back and activate this scoping rule, okay, and if I go back and refresh this page, he will only be able to see 2 accounts whose rating is hot. He will not be able to see other accounts. Okay. So this is the basic scoping rule. That's the purpose of a scoping rule. It will just hide those records so that user will not be able to see them. Okay. And they can focus on the records which now how I have implemented this, that is also important. Okay. So we have created the scoping rule, but what we have to do here is that we will have to filter the views based on scoping rule. So instead of all accounts, we will filter it by scope. Okay, this will be the moment you create a scoping rule, this option will be available for you to use. Okay, filter by scope. Okay, so what does this mean is that you have filtered it by scope. That means whichever record comes under your scope, you will be able to see them. Like an admin, the scope for admin is that he'll be able to see all the records because he has modify all data, view all data. Okay, so for me, this scope is all records, but for other users, this scope might vary. Let's say we created another scoping rule for non-engineering role. Let's say if department is non-engineering, then they should be able to see all the other leads, which are all the other accounts which are not hot. So for them, it will display all the accounts whose rating is not hot. So it will then, based on the scope we have defined in the scoping rule, it will keep on changing the records it will display. But if you will not filter it by scope, then even this user also will be able to see those things. So it's not like it will hide records at all. It will just like, if you will use this particular scope, it will just display the records associated with it. That's it. Okay, it's not like they will not be able to access the record at all. If they actually want it, there are other ways they can still access the records which are hidden on the list view, and that's we will cover in the differences, how they can still view the records which were hidden by the scoping rule. Okay, this is pretty clear, guys, from the demo itself, right? What is the scoping rule? Yeah, Manjunath, go ahead.
Mohit, even though we have the sharing rules or role hierarchy
Yeah.
enabled for the user, so we are hindering them or we are suppressing them with a
Yes,
record
correct,
visibility
correct, correct. You are right.
based on the scope rules, correct?
Yep. Same goes for
Okay.
restriction rule as well. Whatever we
We
have,
are
yeah, whatever
we
we
are
have,
not. Go ahead, please.
yeah, whatever we have given via sharing rules and role hierarchy and everything. And then also, if we have to filter out couple of records, then we will use scoping rules and restriction rules. Okay.
Okay, and the same example, what are you did, right?
Mm-hmm.
Based on the department, we are hard coding the value adds, like
Yep.
engineering.
Yep. Yep.
See, I have
There
example. I
are
have a
other there are other ways to do that as well. Yeah, go ahead.
okay. I have a division. Assume that instead of a department, I have a
Mm-hmm.
division:
Mm-hmm.
north, south, central, east, or something.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I got the same use case yesterday. I was thinking on the same lines. Is it feasible or not? So the right time you are giving me this hint to research on it.
Nice. See,
So the
I keep examples very simple so that it will, I mean, you guys will focus on the topic instead of the complexity of it. But obviously, you can make it as complex as you want, given the limitations we have with the restriction rules and scoping rule. They are not very much flexible. Okay. But Salesforce has a developer guide on these things. Okay. Now I don't think we need second screen, so I will mark it full. Okay.
yeah.
And let us see few of the other thing.
So
Scope,
we can make that value dynamic, right?
yep, scoping. See, I'll show you that. Don't worry.
Yeah.
So there is a Salesforce developer guide for scoping rules. Okay, I'll put the link in the chat. Okay,
Okay.
this will tell you so many things. Okay, and I don't want to go very much in detail, but it is also saying that it also has couple of example scenarios you can go through and check um, how we can use, and we can also create them via tooling API or metadata API. It's not like you are only restricted to create it via UI. Okay, and if you will use the tooling API or metadata API, you have more flexibility. Okay, I will show you that. So if you see this, in the record filter, it is saying that agent's owner users manager ID is equals to this. So here from the UI, you will not be able to do this because it will not give you that much flexibility. But here if you use tooling API, you will be able to create the scoping rule with couple of additional things in it as well. Okay. And for tooling API, they have some guidance. For metadata API, they have some guidance, and there are a couple of considerations. Okay, so let's go through the considerations first, and then we will talk about what I displayed you on screen is the very basic version of the scoping rule, where it is very limited. So if you want to edit it, you only have two criteria: user criteria, okay, which will only be able to filter the fields from the user. Okay, it will not be able to give you the user's manager's email ID, right? It will give you user's manager ID, but if you have to fetch from the user's manager's email ID, it will not be able to. But that you can do from by going to tooling API and doing that. So in the record filter, you can also write query like this. Okay, this one. So that is what I want you guys to go through. And if you want to explore it more, it's not necessary that you explore more for now. But if you want to explore more, this developer guide will definitely be helping you. So to try that, try to create at least one scoping rule via the tooling API. They already have given example, you just need to execute them. Okay. And if you want me to take a session on that, that is also fine. I just don't want to eat up much of the time in this session. Okay, let's go to the considerations first. Create up to 2 active scoping rule per object in developer edition. Yes, this is the same limit we had in restriction rules. Create up to 5 active scoping rules per object in the performance and unlimited edition. So if your org is using unlimited or performance edition, you'll have option to create up to 5 active scoping rule, not more than that. Okay, create only one scoping or restriction rule per object per user. Okay, for a given object, only one scoping or restriction rules user criteria in field can evaluate it true for a given user. So if you have already created a restriction rule for a user, you will not be able to use same user in another scoping, another restriction rule for the same object. Okay, so that's what it is trying to say. See, if we decide or create criteria just for one user or something like that, then we'll have n number of user and we have only 5 scoping rules or the restriction rules. So users will obviously, per user wise, I don't think we'll be creating. There will be some cases where you want to hide something for a specific user. In that case, this might be very helpful, but in a real time scenario, we are not getting much requirement to fulfill by these tools in a real org. Okay, sometimes we may get, but this is very limited functionality, just 5 rules per object. So unless we get a very solid case, we tend not to use this. Okay, but obviously it depends on use case to use case. Plus, I think with time, these both of these tool will mature more, so it will be better. Okay, these types of data are supported in record filter and user criteria. You can check that. When you reference the owner field, you must specify the object type in your syntax. For example, owner field of an event object can contain a user or a queue, but queue are not supported in scoping rule. So it is necessary to specify owner user. Yeah, this is trying to say that if you query it, like from if you do it from the screen, you will only have limited options anyway. But if you do it via query, then you will have to be specifying if owner is a user or a queue. Otherwise, if it is a queue, you will not be able to save this. So I want you guys to focus on this part using SOQL in the record filter and user filter criteria. Okay, and try to see if it is working for you guys. If not, then we can have another session and I can dig more on this. I did not dig more on this because we are not using them much. It is good to know thing right now for us. Okay, to test the performance impact of a rule that uses a socle operator, take the socle statement, run it in a replicant or choice. If it is fast and given user will likely to run. If a rule is performant, isolate the field that is link performance of this data. That is not for you guys right now. But do go through this thing for okay. Now coming to the major question, difference between, and this can be a good interview question. Difference between scoping rule and a restriction rule. Okay, and I think there is a very good article on this. Okay, very good article on this. Go through this. Whichever link I post here, can somebody please make a note of it so that we can attach it with the session as well. Okay, now here what it is saying. This is the difference between the restriction rule and sharing rule. Okay. So they are pretty much similar in so many things, and that is why they look similar. Okay, that's what he's trying to say with a very funny image. Okay, now restriction rules filters the record that a user has access to so that they can access only the record that meets the criteria you're specifying. And scoping rule let you control the record that your user sees based on criteria that you select. So pretty much similar. That's what he's trying to say. And if you see the diagram, when you go and create these things, they also say the same thing. Filter record based on user and record criteria. Filter record based on your user's needs. Filter by division, brand, and record owner. And so they both filter the records. Okay. Their tooling API is also almost similar with just one difference. That is enforcement type. So if you see here, enforcement type is a scoping, whereas enforcement type is restricted. So when we say that enforcement type is restrict, okay. Yeah. So when we say that enforcement's type is restrict, then they will actually restrict the access of that record and you will not be able to access that record. But when it is just a scoping, it's like we have hidden it somewhere so that you cannot see it here. But it is not restricted to you, it is still available to you, it's just that you are not able to see it on screen. So it is not restricted, yet you are not able to see it. So restriction rules are more restrictive in a sense that it is restricted and you will not be able to see it at all. But scoping rules have just hidden the records from you, but you can still see those records other places, in other places. Okay. So one main difference is the object on which these two rules can be applied. A highlight here, obviously, scoping rules are available for standard objects as well, like account, contact, leads, and opportunities, whereas these were not available for the restriction rules. Restriction rules can only be applied to custom objects and I think event and couple of very few standard objects, right? Second difference, and this is also a major difference, is that where they are available to use. Scoping rules can only be used in list views, reports, and SOQL. So you can hide a record in a list view, in a report, and in a result returned via a SOQL query. Okay. Restriction rules, related restrictions are applied on lookups, related list, search, SOSL, SOQL, list views, and reports, every place. So if you have written a scoping rule, it might be possible that your user will be able to see that record in a lookup. Okay, they have a lookup to another user and that user is restricted, yet they are able to see because scoping rule will not restrict a record in the lookups. Same goes for related list. It will not restrict the record in the related list as well. So now you can understand that how we are saying that restriction rules are more restrictive is that because they will restrict you to see those record anywhere, whereas a scoping rule will restrict it only in the list view, reports, and SOQL returns, right? I hope the difference is clear to you. Okay. And if not, go through this article in detail. He has given almost everything. So if you, even if you see this in terms orange and whatever we called it, tangerine. Okay. So they look pretty similar. They taste pretty similar. There might be difference in the prices. Okay. So that's what it is. What it gives you is going to define. These two are the major difference, and I hope that differences are clear to you. Okay. All right. This is a good topic. Any question on scoping rule, guys, before we move on to custom labels? Nice. Let's go to now we have main topic, custom label, custom settings, and custom metadata. Okay. We'll start with custom label. Okay. First, let us go to labels and create it. See, that's how I like to teach is that by creating things on screen rather than just telling you theory, because one, it becomes really boring. Plus, whosoever is reading that will forget it very easily in future. So I try to create those things and then we discuss that. Okay, so I'm going to name it as dummy label, and this is a dummy label. Okay, now language obviously is your English. See, categories is a optional thing. If we read the help text, it says use this field to enter any comma separated values for your choosing. Text entered in this field can be used in the filter criteria when creating custom label list view. Okay, so there the only advantage categories bring is that if you have to filter out or if you have to create a different list view based on the categories you define, okay, you can have custom labels For your Apex use, you can have custom labels. For your LWC use, you can have custom labels for both the use. So you can define a comma separated value, and later on you can create Apex use custom label list use separately, LWC uses custom label separately, and both separately as well. Okay. As such, we do not put a lot in the categories because we get all the labels in screen. We know which label we are looking for, and then we just find it manually. Okay. But this is the functionality of it. Okay. Now, protected component. Okay, I am not going to mark it as protected. What it does is that when we mark it as protected, it becomes a protected component. That means if you are going to put this custom label in a managed package and some other org is going to use this package, use that managed package, they will not be able to make any changes in this custom label. This custom label will be protected. They will only see it in the read-only mode, and they will only be able to use it. They'll not be able to change it. Okay, because you have protected it. But if you are using this custom label for your own Salesforce, or you have no intention to make it as a managed package, you have no intention to put it in a managed package and send it to other org, then you need not to make it protected. Okay, because this only helps when we'll have to put it in a managed package and send to other org. Okay, and this not only applies to custom label, this applies to so many other things as well. Wherever we'll see protected, the meaning remains same. Okay, let me save this. Now you can see here one option comes, translation. So what is this? So this basically means that if you want to, why we create custom label at first. Custom labels are basically static text value is stored in a label, so that in your code you need not to hard code anything. You need not to put the actual value, actual static value in your Apex code. Instead, you will use this custom label, and by using a custom label, it gives you control to change things outside of your Apex class, yet you will be able to make changes in your code. Okay, so let's say if there is an endpoint, like I'm doing a call out and there is an endpoint and I want to change it. So I will put the, let me open a developer console and see if I have an endpoint which is static, and we can change it. Okay. Oh, do call out class. I don't think in this org we will have. Just a second. Definitely be able to find a call out code. So what we normally do is that whenever we do a call out, or whenever we have to store something related to endpoint or something, we sometimes do use custom labels. Or not only the call out, sometimes we have to check something on profile ID, role ID, record type ID, all those things. Instead of directly writing those things in the developer in the Apex class, we try to create a custom label and then do those things and write the value in the label and use custom label in the Apex. So what it does is that first, later on, if anything changes on that ID, let's say you have to, in the partial copy, you have a different record type ID. When you go to production, you have a different record type ID. So if you will use that static ID in your Apex code, you will have to manually change your Apex code. Okay. And that is not a good thing. So what we will do is that we will create a custom label, put the ID value there, write a post deployment step where we will write that replace this particular ID with productions ID. So you will make changes outside of the code, yet you will be able to change the behavior of your code. Okay, that is a functionality or a flexibility. Okay, file coding process. I have so many lead.
Sir, like you just told that any which ways we were going to change the ID value, right? So when we from sandboxes
Yeah,
to productions.
but that is that you will not need to go to the Apex class. Everybody is not comfortable in, let's say you have a business analyst who does all these post deployment steps. So you don't want a business analyst to go to the Apex class. First, they'll not be comfortable in going in Apex class and checking which line I need to change, because everybody is not comfortable with code. Plus, it is a bad practice. Let's say they just changed the ID, they did not put the single quotes. That will break your code as well, right? So
Yes.
what we want is that we provide them with the functionality that they need not to go to the code much, yet they'll be able to do the changes. And that's what custom metadata and custom settings also do. They allow us to make changes in the behavior of our code without actually touching the code. Okay.
Yes, sir. Got it.
Okay. Okay. Let's I have created this. This was the first use case of custom label. Okay, there is a second use case. We use custom labels to create multilingual applications as well. And how custom label helps is that, let's say you've created this particular label, okay, and I will create a translation for it. So whichever language I have selected, like currently we only have Spanish, and how we go to that is, let me show you that. So by default, this translation will not be available. Okay. By default, this translation will not be available. So first you have to enable it. Okay. Translation language setting, you will go here and okay. Just a second. Okay, so it is already enabled for me because I have enabled it. So from here, you will get the enable or disable option. Okay, this is currently enabled. So this is showing the disable option. Otherwise, it will just show enable and there will be no language. So first you will have to enable it, and then you have to add the languages in it, on which languages you want translation to be available. These are the default languages you will get. So currently I have selected Spanish. Let's select Hindi, or which one you want, guys. Tamil. Let's select Tamil. Okay. Now I have two language on which I can translate to. Okay. Now I will again go to custom label and refresh it. So sometimes we have to make the Lightning Web Components where we want to display the headings, or we want to display the names as if they should be translated automatically depending on the language of the user. Okay. And when we have to create the multilingual applications, then custom labels become really important, but because they by default provide the translation. If we have given the translation of that label in the backend, depending on user language, they will quickly switch to the users related language rather than showing this value. Otherwise, you have to do this thing in your own code. You will have to find the country language, the user's login language, and then if language is this, then you will have to provide the translation, and then you have to change the label value manually in your code. So custom label all saves a lot of time, that because they do this automatically for you. Now, how will we make it? So for Spanish, let's say, uh, this is, we copy it, we will put it here, save it. We'll copy it, we will put it here. Spanish is fine. Mhm. Save it. So that's how you have created a custom label and then you have translated in these two languages. Okay. Now you can use these translation as well in your code whenever you want it. Okay. So whenever we have to create the multilingual applications, we can take advantage of custom label. Now, how do we get custom labels in our Apex code? For that, let's go to the developer console, because sometimes they ask you where we can get custom labels, how we can get custom labels, right? So to do that, I will just use the developer console, like how I do it. And that is why I always tell you that debugging is the only, I have seen a developer who knew nothing, who was a mechanical engineer, and I just told him how to debug how to debug. That's it. And he was able to do everything because he was making mistakes, he was learning from those mistakes and debugging again. So debugging is the most essential skill to start learning the development. Those who find development really difficult, they should learn debugging first, then actually trying to code. Okay. Now let's say I want to get this label string, my label. So getting a label is easy. System dot label dot name of that label. Always remember it will take name, not the description, or treat it as the API name and this as the name. Okay, whatever is you are comfortable with. And if I to debug this, okay. Now it should give me the value. Yeah. So this is the value of your label. That's how we are able to get it in the Apex. Very simple. Similarly, you can also get it in the Lightning Web Component, in your flows, in the validation rule. We will check that thing. Okay. There is one more thing, and let me mm, try. Let me see. Just a second, guys. I'm just trying to experiment here. Okay, nothing else. So this, if you see, you've got the translated value of it. Okay. So if I show you, what I did is that I got it via a method rather than getting it directly. Okay. So get is the method, okay, on which I first parameter is reserved for the namespace. Okay, so if you are getting a label which was a part of a namespace, you can write it. If it is your own label, there is no namespace, you can just write it blank. Okay, but if I do not put it and try to execute, I will get an error. Okay, it throws an error. So I think this is written in this manner that we'll have first one is for namespace, second was the name of your label, and third one is for which language you want to get the value of it. Okay, and if you do not provide anything here and try to get it, then it will give you the by default language, which is English. Okay, so now how will you get to know? So here I knew that for Spanish, ES is the code. Okay, But for Tamil, I'm not sure what is decode. So for that, you will have to take the help of Salesforce and Salesforce. Let's see here. Yeah, so you can see for we check for Spanish, it is ES. Okay. What is for Tamil? From here we translated it now. Let's try to see if there is any. No, there is no code. So sometimes these kind of issues will come where we'll have to do some research. Language. Yeah, I mean, I already know what it is. I just want you guys to, if you get stuck somewhere, how will you be able to find that? Sometimes happens is that we do not find it. So in that case, you will have to sometimes do some research, debug some Salesforce document and all that. Okay. Yeah, here it is. This is the supported language page. Let me put it on code on the chat. Thank you, Chris, for telling me this. And let's try it. So here you got it. So what we normally do is that we get it like first option only. Okay, but sometimes we have to get the translated value as well, or sometimes we'll have to check the translated value as well. So that is how, if in an interviewer ask you, okay, we will get the label like this system.label name, but what if I want to get the translated value of it? How will we get that? So you know that, right? Don't fail in this question. Don't get tricked by it. Okay, that's it. How we get the custom labels in validation rule? We can check it right now. We will not create much. We will just see how we can create, how we can get it. Okay. So we'll create a new rule. I don't want to create anything. I'll just show you here. So here you have this label. Okay. On the left hand panel, you will have the label. From here, you can go to put your label itself. So it is possible to use the custom labels in the validation rule. Can we get custom labels in formula field? Let us see that, right? And sometimes when I teach, these things looks very basic, but when we get them in an interview, it becomes, so all of a sudden they becomes complicated, right? So we'll have to be very careful. We can get it in the label. Now you guys have seen it happening in front of your eyes. So I hope you guys will be able to tell the interviewer as well. Okay. Do not miss these type of questions. Okay. And you can also get the custom permissions from here. We created that bypass validation permission. You can get it from here. You can get custom labels as well. So you can get custom labels in both validation rule as well as the formula fields. Now we have a couple of questions on custom labels. This was relatively very easy topic, and it is an easy topic, but you should know these questions. So that is why I have written a couple of questions on custom label. Here we go. Okay, let's cover them. What is custom label? You know that how custom label are different from custom settings. We will cover when we cover the custom settings, but overall custom labels just provide you to put a static value in your labels and use those value outside, use those value in your Apex classes code and use those values in validation rule. So it gives you a lot of functionality to change things outside of your actual code, yet change the behavior of your code. Okay, custom settings are also used for the same purpose. They are more, but they are more advanced. They have lots of functionalities. Custom label just have a static text value functionality, that's it. But custom settings are way more advanced than custom labels in terms of functionality. They are also used for the same purpose, but with an advanced features. Okay, and we will discuss more on this as well. Can you explain the use cases of using custom label? There are so many use cases whenever you have to show a button in a different language, or whenever you have to do call outs and you want to avoid hard coding, whenever you have some uh, profile check, record type check, permission check, and you want to avoid hard coding, then you can use custom label. So there are two use cases. One is in the UI, one is in the backend. In the backend, we use them to avoid hard coding. In the front end, we use to create the multilingual applications. Make sure you explain both of them. Okay, sometimes we use custom labels, so we have to display a couple of error message, and based on couple of conditions, and we don't want to hard code those error message because error message keeps on changing or may have to change in future. So you will use custom labels to display error message. Okay, and you can change the behavior outside of the code. Okay, how do you reference the custom label in Apex code? We have seen that dollar label dot namespace. This is this is in the UI. And in the Apex, like in the Apex class, you can use the system dot label dot custom label name. This is how you use it in the UI. So in the Lightning Web component.
So sorry,
Um,
so like what exactly is namespace like?
Namespace is basically, okay, when you will put it in a managed package, okay, then you will have to provide a namespace for it. Okay, then you will use the namespace. Otherwise, it is directly available. So let's say you have a custom label which is a part of a managed package. Okay, then if you will go to that managed package, you will see there is a namespace as well. I will show you that. Okay, don't worry. Once I stop the recording, I will show you that. Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
What is the significance of using custom labels for multi-language? Okay, they'll just do the translation automatically. What is the purpose of manual translation button in the custom label setup? Manage translation. Yeah, sorry. So manage translation allows you to create translation for your custom labels, making your Salesforce application accessible to users in different language. We checked that, right? In the custom label, when we went to the custom labels, there is a manage translation option comes in. See this translation option. This basically allows you to add translation for your label. And this option will not be available by default. You will have to first enable the translation. So you will write here translation, you will get translation settings and all. You will just enable it. And then you will get an option to select the languages which you want to select to be translated. And then once you select, only those language will be available for you for translation. Any doubt in this, guys? No, I'll take it as no. Can you modify the value of custom labels dynamically in Apex code? See, custom labels are created for a purpose to have a static value. Treat them as a constant. Okay, if you will have to use a constant in your Apex class, treat them as such value. Okay, we do not change the value of custom label dynamically in Apex. So it's like we have provided a dummy label. It's not like we can go to Apex and access this dummy label and then update the value of it. No, that's not possible. We do not do that, and that is not a good thing to do as well. Like let's say if you have put at the endpoint here, why will we change it in the Apex? This is only for you to use to treat it as a tool for your users rather than a setting which you can change inside your code and all. Okay, if you need to change it, go to custom label and change it. That is the purpose of it. That is why it has been created. It gives you a functionality, it gives you a flexibility to change your code outside of your code. Okay, so we do not do that, and that is not possible. Okay, they are intended for the fixed text value. Okay, that can be easily managed and translated outside of your code. Okay, now, is there a limit on number of custom labels that we can create in the Salesforce organization? Yes, we can at max create 5,000. I have checked it from the Salesforce document. But if you see any discrepancy in any of the blog or somewhere, make sure you confirm it with the standard Salesforce documentation. I'm not against any blog or something. They are doing really good work, but it's just that sometimes let's say I have created a blog in 2016. I do not have much time to check that, and that might be outdated. But people, if it is available on web, people might still be seeing that and might be getting a wrong information. So as a blogger, it is my responsibility to update my blog, but we understand it is a human error. Sometimes we miss to update those things. So always confirm any limit related things with Salesforce standard document. Okay. Do not go blindly trust any blog. I am not against them, but confirm it with Salesforce document. So this limit is 5,000. We cannot have more than 5,000 custom labels. What is the maximum length limit for the value of a custom label in Salesforce? The value of a particular custom label can be 1,000. So what it is trying to say that this value, we cannot have more than 1,000 characters here. Okay. And how many characters can be used in label name? So label name will be 80 characters. This is what it is talking about. This cannot be more than 80 characters. And last is there a limit on number of translation that can be created for a single custom label? No, there is no specific limit on number of the translation that can be created for a custom label. You can create translation for as many languages as needed. Okay. Yeah, obviously. See, when it comes to asking Salesforce, yeah, obviously see, 5,000 is way too much anyway. I have not seen any organization which is hitting 5,000 custom label limit. But yeah, this is not hard limit. We can ask Salesforce to increase it. So if you want to, but I don't think people are now creating too many custom labels. They prefer to use metadata and custom settings. But yeah, as Mudit is saying on chat that this is not a hard limit. We can ask Salesforce to increase this limit, but by default, you will get this in your org. Okay. Yes, Manjunath, you have a question. Go ahead.
Yeah. Uh, in Apex, we will referring through label dot and label whatever custom label name whatever is there, right?
Dot label.
When do we use system dot? I mean, I missed that.
See, system dot label dot label name is the way we get it in the Apex, and dollar is something that's how we get in the UI. Okay, so it is, I think, written here. I will, I will change it. So this is for the UI. In the Apex, we get it by the system. I showed you, right?
Yeah.
System dot label dot dummy label. Okay, if there is any confusion, I will show you in the Lightning Web component as well tomorrow morning early, first thing. Okay.
Okay. One more question is like, if
Hmm.
I want uh the complete application in Portugal,
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Okay.
Do we have Salesforce supported any language packages for that, or
See,
is just
by default, Salesforce automatically supports couple of language, and that is controlled by the language you select in your user record. So depending on which user you select, many of the Salesforce thing will automatically be translated to that language. Okay. So there is a Salesforce link on this, like what things will be automatically translated versus what will not be. Okay. But when we create a custom applications, then we will have to take care of that thing. Like if user is this, then this thing should look in the Portuguese or whatever you want to change it to. So by default, Salesforce does that, but I don't think if it has a language package to just automatically apply on the custom language. So I have to do a lot of thing on custom on that thing. And custom label is just one way to at least begin with that. But there will be a lot of things we'll be doing custom if you'll have to make multilingual applications. Okay, I'm not sure if there is any standard label for that. Sorry, standard package for that, but I will check that. Okay. See, whenever I have created multi-language applications, most of the heavy lifting was done by Salesforce itself. It's just that some UI tweaks we needed to do, which we did with the custom labels. And rest of the things they were able to see on their own language by default. So that is it.
Because I'm
I will check.
comparing this with the other CRMs, because I started my career with Civil CRM, where they used to give the language package if they want to multi-language support. Like we will install that package, it will directly keep supporting. We don't have to do anything until unless we just have to change their settings to that specific setting. So here I'm not sure, I didn't work on the multi-language till
It
now.
See, here also it is, if you will see the user record and if you change the language from your own user record, let's say if we change it for dummy user 2, so currently dummy user 2 is having English as language. Let me select Spanish. Okay.
Mhm.
And save this. And then if I log in as this user, so it will automatically change so many things in the Spanish. You see here,
Yeah.
everything is in Spanish. But these things will not change. So the record which you have created will still be in, the name will still be in the way it was created. So dummy user 2 is still the dummy user 2. Test account is still the test account 2. Okay. So if I go to setup,
Is that the setup?
yeah, this is,
It is.
so everything is in Spanish. So they're pretty much, this is the object manager.
Guesswork is working.
So you see this label will change. This is the name. This is the API name. But if you see here, this name will remain same. Asset is still asset. Entitlement is still entitlement. Lead is still lead. So these things will not change. So the label will change. So this is candidate or is lead. Okay.
So we don't have to do any hard work. We just have to
No,
change
no,
that.
no,
It will
definitely
work.
not the hard work. See, backend almost same. You see that API name will not change, but the look and feel will change so that you can. For a developer, it will be a same thing. So
Okay.
we will work on same API names and classes and triggers will work on the same, and that is logical as well, right? Code
Yep.
is written. So that is pretty much custom label is an easy thing, but developers use it a lot. That is why I want to give more attention to this. That is why we have covered it, not in rush. Normally, what people do is that in custom label, they just say that we create multilingual application and we avoid hard coding by custom label. That's it. But we have seen all those things on UI. We have seen couple of questions. We have seen couple of limit related questions. And I hope that whenever we get anything in custom label, we will absolutely nail that question. That's what I want from you guys. Okay. I'm gonna stop sharing and I'm gonna stop recording now. Then I'll just show one thing.